Hello, planet Earth. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're at IDK, my BFF Jill 730. I'm Preston Young, wishing you warm salutations and congratulations because you've made your way to the Buffington Post. Today it's time for another Buffyverse discussion. So I'd like to invite you all to reach into your super gay Buffy bag and pull out an avocado, or some chopstick, or chapstick, or a box cutter, or an electric plug converter, or a baseball cap, or a beanie, or I don't know, fuck, maybe you're a visor person, I don't know your life, or some shaving cream, or a pack of Uno cards, whatever you want, pull it out. It doesn't matter, because today's Buffyverse discussion is all about choices, you guys. That's right. Today's Buffyverse discussion is all about choices. So, let's talk about Courtney, Billy, and Anaheed, the Vampire Slayers.
1, 2, 3, let's all sing. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a green one, and a pink one, and a blue one, and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university, where they were put in boxes, and they came out all the same. And there's doctors, and there's lawyers, and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course, and drink their martinis dry, and they all have pretty children, and the children go to school. And the boys go into business, and marry and raise a family, in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
Okay, planet Earth, so the Slayer is obviously this great big metaphor for feminism, yay, right? But the fact of the matter is we need to go back to season 7, episode something or other, Get It Done, in which we find out exactly how the first Slayer was created. And basically, it's this whole rape metaphor. The Slayer never has a choice. They take this girl, they chain her to the earth, because she has no choice of her own. She doesn't have any will, okay? So Buffy spends her entire life, having to be the Slayer because it's something she didn't choose. It's something that chose her. So at the end of season 7, of course, Buffy and Willow cast this crazy spell, and all the girls who could be the next Slayer are now the Slayer, and they have some kind of freedom over their life because, hey, they don't have to be the Slayer. And so Buffy gives them this choice. You can fight the good fight, or you can go about your life. It's not on you. The whole world is not on your shoulders. And so around the time of Predators and Prey, we are introduced to Courtney, this blonde, I'm guessing, English vampire slayer who is trying to go out and patrol on her own, but she's really bad at it, and she almost gets totally killed, but then she runs into Giles and Faith, who are now playing social workers to the Slayers, right? So Faith kills this vampire that was totally going to kill Courtney, and she's like, oh my gosh, you must be Buffy. And Faith's like, no, I'm not Buffy, I'm Faith. And so, whatever, this other vampire comes out of nowhere, and she stakes it. She's like, oh, well, maybe I'm not ready to go to the Slayer Sanctuary after all. And she's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I came out here to, play Slayer because my squad isn't doing anything. They're just sitting around doing nothing, and I want to get out there in the fray. But, there's this Slayer Sanctuary for girls who don't want to be chosen because, now we have a choice to choose whether or not we want to be chosen. And there's like the Slayer Sanctuary for the girls who want to ignore their calling, and it is in Hanselstadt. So Giles and Faith go with Courtney to Hanselstadt, and on their way into Hanselstadt, they see all of these vampires that are kind of outside of the town, right on the town line. And we're all like, that's weird. But anyway, so they get into town, and they immediately meet this former Watcher named Duncan. And so Duncan invites them all in, and he's like, yeah, this is just a sanctuary for girls who don't want to, be involved in the big fight, whatever. And since all of these Slayers are coming into town, none of the vampires will come in because they know we've got this army of Slayers. Giles and Courtney kind of think that if the Slayers in Hanselstadt see Faith, it'll inspire, some faith in them to go on and continue their training and go and be in the fight and not ignore their calling. So, whatever. So, Giles and Faith are kind of curious as to why there would be a Slayer Sanctuary, like why they are kind of facilitating this, allowing them to just ignore their calling and who they are. But the thing about it is, right now we are in the middle of Predators and Prey, in which the whole world has basically found out about Slayers and they've turned against them. And Duncan is using the Magneto argument, which is why protect a world of people that hate and fear you. So Faith and Courtney go with this lady to see where all the Slayers are, and they're all in this library. And Faith is like, this obvious trap seems like a trap. So they go into the library. Faith starts hallucinating about this like past event in her life, and she's like thinking that she's fighting this vampire, etc. And it's all in her head. And Courtney's like, "What the fuck, dude? There are no vampires here. You need to get your shit together and come back to reality real quick." So then we find out that the reason that the vampires aren't coming into town is not because they've got this army of Slayers. It turns out that there's this demon in the library of the town that was feeding on children's regrets and fears, and now there are no more children there. And so in order to keep vampires out, who are also affected in the same way by this demon, they keep bringing in young girls, these Slayers, telling them it's a Slayer sanctuary, and they're feeding these girls to the demon. And Giles is like, dude, what the fuck? And he's like, well, you know, your Buffy pretty much caused this problem. And it's not my fault that these girls want to just ignore their calling. And if they want to ignore what they are, then I'm just going to feed them to this thing. And we can all just live happily with the vampires staying out of town. So Giles is like, you are fucking crazy. So he runs off to go and try and save Faith and Courtney. So by this point, the demon gets Courtney. It's like this crazy, tentacly majigger. Like I said, they love to use these tentacly motherfuckers all up in the comic books. But anyway, Courtney's been ensnared by the thing, and she's hallucinating too, and she thinks that she's having this great big family reunion. We find out that her parents had gotten a divorce, and she thought that she was the problem with the divorce, but now she's hallucinating that it's all just grand and wonderful, and that her parents are hugging her, but really she's getting choked to death by this fucking crazy demon. Faith kills the demon, but before they kill the demon gets Duncan, who had come along to try and kill Giles. Right? So, whatever. At the end, of course, now that the demon's dead, the vampires all start to converge on the town, and Courtney is like, okay, well, I guess it's time for me to take a crash course in training. And Faith is like, okay, well, just aim for the heart. And so the thing about Courtney is she had a choice. She had a choice to ignore her calling or to go ahead and take it for herself. And even though all of these other Slayers were supposedly going off to this sanctuary or whatever, she knew that she could be more. And she chose not to ignore her calling and to step up to the plate and try and do something about it. And she was a little foolhardy about it in the first place by leaving her squad and just going off by herself. The fact of the matter is, she was trying, and she did decide for herself that this is what she wanted to do. So now let's talk about Billy. Okay, so in Season 9, we are introduced to Billy Lane, I think his last name is, and he lives in Santa Rosita, California. And the thing about it is, he's this gay boy whose parents kicked him out of the house, and now he lives with his hippie grandmother, and she's all nice and wonderful. And Billy has this best friend named Katie, and so Katie and Billy are like misfits, and they just sit out by the airport thinking about how life is going to get better eventually. Right? So he, of course, gets bullied by the town jocks, and he and Katie like talk about this character called Cute Devin, whatever. So this airplane comes into the Santa Rosita port, and it had someone who was killed by a zombie and apparently made zombie. And so the zombie gets out and starts to create other zombies, and now there becomes this zombie epidemic within Santa Rosita. So Billy, as he has begun his like physical training to kind of defend himself against these assholes who just want to beat him up all the time just because he's gay, he's approached by Cute Devin, who tells him that the Zompires are becoming a problem in their town, and he's taken it upon himself to become a watcher, and he thinks that Billy would make a good Slayer. And keep in mind that everybody knows about Slayers at this point, okay? And he's like, I don't have all the strength and skill, and I'm just a little gay boy in high school. I don't have the stuff to do this. And Devin is like, well, I believe in you, and if you'll believe in yourself and just think about what's at stake here, I think we can really make a difference. So, whatever. Stuff goes down. They take out some zompires, and they're trying to, like, figure out what they're going to do. And then, oh, no, the zompires, like, get this whole place taken over in town, and Billy's grandmother is in there, and so he's going to go after and try and save his grandmother. And Devin's like, wait, no, you'll never make it. They'll kill you, etc., etc. So Billy's like, fuck that. I'm out of here. Do what you need to do. So Billy goes off to try and save his grandmother, and before he gets there, Devin shows up, and he's like, hey, blase blase, don't do this alone. And he's basically like, you know, I like you. I think you're really cute. Whatever. So Billy's like, oh, I didn't know cute Devin was gay or whatever. So anyway, they go in, they take out some zompires, and they save his grandmother, etc. And at the end of the issue, Buffy, whom he was trying to get in contact with in San Francisco, shows up with Detective Dowling, and they are all just gonna, like, take care of the zompires together, and then Billy actually comes back with Buffy to San Francisco. Okay, so sidebar, let's talk about Anaheed real quick. So at the beginning of season 9, Buffy moves out of Dawn and Xander's apartment, and she moves in with some roommates named Tumble and Anaheed. And Tumble's like this white dude, and Anaheed is like this cool chick who wears suspenders, and she's like a hot, young 30-something. Right? Anyway, so Anaheed and Tumble are really cool with Buffy. They like her friends, etc., etc. Everything's gravy until the police come knocking on the door looking for Buffy after she's suspected of, like, killing some people. So, whatever. Later on, they see on the news that, yeah, the police are looking for Buffy and that she's a vampire slayer, etc., etc. So, they go into her room, pulled out all of Buffy's stuff, and she's like, yeah, this bitch is a vampire slayer. Buffy comes back after her name is cleared, but she's not really hanging out with the roommates because she's, like, all up in her own head because she thinks she's pregnant, right? So, they're trying to talk to her, and they take a vote as to whether or not they're going to keep her in the apartment because of, like, everybody knows about slayers and things like this, and the media has painted them as super scary, and Buffy in particular. So they take a vote to see whether or not they want to keep her in the apartment, and they both decide yes, they do want to keep her in the apartment because they just like her.
Buffy goes off to get an abortion, and then her arm is all ripped off. She finds out she's not pregnant. She's a robot. She goes back to get her body, and then after she gets her body, she goes to work for Kennedy real quick, and then after she gets a deep scan, she goes and gets Billy and brings Billy back to San Francisco with her, where he's, like, crashing at her apartment.
Right. Shortly after this, we see that Anaheed is, like, rifling through Buffy's things in her room. She's, like, going through her boxes. And Buffy's like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just looking for a shirt. And Buffy's like, oh, here's the shirt you're looking for. So whatever. Billy and Buffy are, like, going out, doing the Slayer thing together. They're trying to track down this, like, super duper zompire who, like, was just really super strong. And they go to this warehouse with Detective Dowling and the Vampire Task Force, and they're, like, taking out these zompires, and they find the chick, zompire, who was, like, all super strong. And whatever, they're, like, about to get her, and then wham bam poof, Buffy gets teleported away by Illyria to LA. So Billy is sitting there holding a stake, and he gets, like, super attacked by all these zompires. Detective Dowling almost dies, but then the Vampire Task Force comes in the last second, dusts all the zompires. Yay. He's gonna be okay, and it turns out that Dowling is also gonna be okay. Billy doesn't know where Buffy went, and he's like, I gotta go and find Buffy. And Anaheed's like, where did Buffy go? So he goes to the warehouse to try and look at the surveillance system and maybe find out what happened to Buffy. And Anaheed follows him there. And he's like, no, you don't belong here. You're not in all this Slayer stuff. You need to go on somewhere that's dangerous. And she's like, right, because you've got all these superpowers. Sure. So, whatever. Billy goes in, he's like looking at the surveillance camera, and sure enough, Buffy's just there, and then she's not on the camera. So, these vampires show up, they're gonna totally kill Billy, but then Anaheed comes out of nowhere, she stakes these vampires, and she's like, actually, I'm a slayer. Surprise! So, she and Billy take out those vampires, and she explains that, remember those angry Felicias from San Francisco that I talked about that tried to beat up Buffy because they felt all, well, what are we gonna fucking do now after Buffy destroyed the seed? Right. A lot of the slayers that Buffy had created, they like turned on her since she totally like took away their destiny. But there were a lot of slayers apparently who stayed loyal to Buffy, and Anaheed is one of these. And so she explains that she was sent to basically make sure that Buffy's life was as easy as possible. She's there to protect her from bad roommates and late rent and, you know, the harshness of the real world. She says that she's actually been paying Buffy's rent quite a few times. And so, whatever, Buffy comes back from LA, and by this point, all this crazy going on with Dawn, and they decide not to tell Buffy about Anaheed being a slayer because they don't want to hurt her ego. They don't want to be like, hey, some slayer saw that you needed a babysitter for your real life. Buffy and Willow and Xander go to the deeper well to try and fix Dawn, and then Spike shows up at Buffy's apartment where Andrew, Billy, and Anaheed are taking care of Dawn. So after Spike shows up, Billy gets word from Devin that the vampires are back and he and Katie can't fight them off, and since magic is breaking down, the vampires no longer require invitation to get in, and Billy needs to get there to help them now. So Billy and Anaheed run off to Santa Rosita, but not before they can relay the information that Anaheed recognized the vampire that was all super strong. She says that she was in Rona's squad with her, but she went off to join Simone in her crazy anarchist slayer nonsense after everything happened, right? And so they go to Santa Rosita, and they are fighting off the vampires there. So at this point, Billy, let's get back on Billy, receives a vision from the first Slayer in his dreams, and this is right at the time that the new Seed of Wonder has been made, okay? We pick up in Season 10, and Buffy and company have all come to Santa Rosita to help fight against the vampires. Whatever, they take care of the vampires, they get everything handled, and then Giles and Faith show up out of nowhere with Kennedy, Holly, and Leah, and they talk to Giles about the fact that Billy's having these dreams, and Giles is like, no, that's wrong. Guys don't get Slayer dreams. You're probably just like wish fulfillment in your dreams. And Billy's like, no, I didn't know anything about the first Slayer when I had my dream. And so at this point, we're seeing that now, because Billy has kind of taken it upon himself to be a Slayer, since he kind of chose to go out of his way and become a vampire Slayer, that now he is connected to the Slayer energy, that the Slayer power sees him as an ally. And even though he doesn't have the power, like the strength and the weapon skill, he is, in fact, connected to the Slayer power. Yes, once again, my computer has decided to completely mess up on me. But because Billy kind of chose and went out of his way to become Slayer, it seems that this new Seed of Wonder has recognized him as such, and he is in fact connected to this by his own choosing. And so I put all of these Slayers together today because I've been watching Season 3 of House of Cards all weekend, and I thought, if Robin Wright can fit 3 Slayers in that great big hole at her collarbone and neck, then I can fit 3 Slayers into a video and put them into a theme. And I think that Courtney, Anaheed, and Billy are great examples of the fact that you do have a choice. Courtney could have chosen to throw herself into the snake pit, and instead she just went there to kind of show Giles and Faith what it was that she was talking about. And Billy could have chosen to run away from his problems or let his problems beat him up like the bullies in his town, but instead he chose to step up and make something better of himself and do something for others. And Anaheed, when the other Slayers had turned their backs on Buffy, she said, "You know what? I would have nothing to be mad at Buffy about if she hadn't gone out of her way to give me this power to save this world in the first place." And so she chose to go against the grain and stand up for Buffy and protect her when no one else would. And so this choice in the matter is something that Buffy has created for all of these Slayers. For Courtney, with the creation of all the Slayers, giving her and all the other Slayers a choice to either be involved in this or not. And then with Billy, when she destroyed magic and then recreated it, it made a place for Billy in this world. And about the Slayers not having a choice, the fact that they're all women is of the design of men, prehistoric men. You feel me? And now that choice is for men and women to have. I hope you enjoyed today's Buffyverse discussion. I'm here. I'll be back Wednesday with another Angel and Faith review. Number 12 will be out this week, and you can expect some more Buffyverse discussions in the coming week. I'm going to do one for the Slayers of Deep Scan, which will include Leah and Rowena, who were very close to being demoted to Felicia territory. So, hope you're having a great 2015 so far, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
1, 2, 3, let's all sing. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a green one, and a pink one, and a blue one, and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university, where they were put in boxes, and they came out all the same. And there's doctors, and there's lawyers, and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry, and they all have pretty children, and the children go to school. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.